I don't think Purdue fans expected this game to go the way it did at all. Purdue gets out to a gigantic lead. They let it slip. It goes to overtime, but they win. And they win on the road against a top 10 team. We're going to break down everything right here on Boilers in the Stands, the good and the bad, everything in between. Welcome back to Boilers in the Stands. I'm your host, Joe Jackson. Alongside me, as always, is my co-host, Kraig Bowers. An exciting game for the last 25 minutes, a game that probably shouldn't have been exciting, but it was. You came on and you said just as we expected it to go, right? And that's, uh, I mean, just one of those games where it's just like, I don't know what to say right now. I'm going to throw it to you right away. Get your kind of immediate thoughts. Maybe I'll have time to be able to kind of collect mine after and maybe give a little bit more input than just, I don't really know what just happened. So I'll throw it to you, Kraig, for your instant reactions to the game.
Yeah, and I guess where I want to go with this right away is like coming into this year, even before we knew Nebraska was going to be this team that started on this just massive, massive run to open this season. And what some people thought was the biggest surprise in this season. I know Joe and I were high on Nebraska because we're both high on Reek Mass, but I don't think either of us even thought Nebraska was going to be this good coming into the year. But nonetheless, I had circled this game when we did the schedule preview as one of the most difficult matchups for Purdue based on the way Nebraska wants to play, based upon the difficulty of playing in Pinnacle Arena, all of that. And then, hey, turns out Nebraska is really, really good this year. So going into this game, Joe and I in the preview show both picked a loss. There's going to be a lot of talk, and Joe and I are going to talk about the negative of what happened in this game. We're going to talk about the breakdowns in the second half, the missed free throws, all those sort of things. But at the end of the day, Purdue went into a top 10 matchup on the road, figured out a way to win. And like, I don't want fans to lose that are tuning into this show. Like, do not lose perspective of the fact that Purdue just went in to number 7 Nebraska and came away with a win. Was it pretty down the stretch? No. They got to win. That's the biggest thing. That's what I want fans to look at first. And then we can talk about the dirty, the ugly, everything else at the end of this game for the a duration of this show, at least a portion of this show.
Yeah, I think that is like, we'll get into the negative, and I'm sure Purdue fans will want to harp on it. But like at the end of the day, if I told you before the game that Purdue won 80-77 in overtime at Nebraska, we would have taken that outcome 10 times out of 10. Obviously, the context and the game flow dictates a little bit of how this game is viewed, but that's also what happens when you dominate for 20 minutes. Like you have a wide margin of error. Purdue maximized that margin of error, unfortunately for Purdue fans and themselves. But at the end of the day, they do still end up winning. And I thought there was a lot of good, and we'll hit on that starting with Cluff. And like we'll go into breakdowns of players obviously more later in the show. Also, while you're here, make sure to like, subscribe. If you're watching live, come tune into the chats, whether you're on YouTube or not. But if you head over to YouTube, like, subscribe, turn on bell notifications, it really does help us a lot. Come join the chat, come hang out, talk through the mess of what the second half was. But Purdue dominated the first half. Just simply put, they dominated the first half, and Cluff was incredible. And I obviously, not that I affect anything within the game or anything, or Cluff cares what I say, but or even hears what I say. But I was hard on him last game. I thought he was, I thought it was a really poor performance from him, and he responded with, I'm probably his best game of the season. He had 10 offensive rebounds himself. And that's going to be a massive, massive talking point for really this game. Like Purdue's second chance points, just that won them the game. If you were to me, if you were to boil it down to one stat, 17 second chance points to 6 for Nebraska. Cluff, TKR dominant on the glass. It wasn't a great shooting night. Like Purdue did all this, blowing the lead in one of the toughest environments in the Big Ten this season, while shooting terrible from three, and they still win. So like to just kind of echo Kraig. Yes, there is concerns about how the way this game went in the second half and overtime, but at the end of the day, it is a win. And for this Purdue team that, right, is struggled as of the last few weeks, any win like this is big. And even just looking ahead, obviously if they want to win the Big Ten, they got to probably just win out at this point. But even just for like seeding purposes and just mojo going into the end of the season, it doesn't become where they like have to win one or two of their next two, right? They have at Iowa, home against Michigan, the next two. And I don't want to. I'm just jumping ahead already, skipping this game, but right. Obviously, you want to go 2-0. They need to. Going 1-1 isn't like the end of the world now, and it would have been closer to that had they lost this one. So impressive to be able to bounce back in overtime. Like for a team that looked lost and defeated to close the second half, being able to come out in overtime and do enough to win. And I know they got a couple of breaks, Mass fouling out, the Lawrence turnover at the end with just the wet floor. Like that's one where obviously I'm happy Purdue won. It is almost just like I'd rather Nebraska just at least gotten a shot. It's one of those just like that's the way this game's going to end. It doesn't feel right, but that's I don't know. That's what I got. I think for opening remarks. Like I said, it's one of those. It's just your brain's kind of all over. We get like a minute in between to try to gather thoughts. This is a game where Braggs would have shined in this opening statement. He really would have. But you guys are stuck with us two for right now. So throw it back to you, Kraig, for just kind of wherever you want to bounce to with it.
Well, first of all, shout out to Greg. Greg was very active in our group chat during the game. I can convey some thoughts from Greg, although I don't know I can say them in the exact words that he said them in the second half. But at the same time, Joe and I want to give a shout out to Greg's mom and everything. Just dealing with some stuff right now at home. So I don't know that Greg's going to be on the show tonight, but thinking of Greg's mom tonight and hoping everything is all good there. But Joe, I'm with you. Like, to me, this game was about rebounding. And one of the things that we talked about, I don't remember if I brought it up in the last post-game show or the post-game show before that or the previous show. I don't remember. But one of the things I talked about was given the way Purdue has chosen to go about their personnel and the fact that they want a bunch of skill players on the perimeter. They want really big mammoths down low. One of the keys to Purdue's formula this entire time, if we look even before Edey, everybody always says, well, when you have Zach Edey, National Player of the Year back-to-back, that's the way it's going to be, whatever. Go back before Edey. Go to Isaac Haas. Go to A.J. Hammonds. Go to other big-time centers that dominated rebounding. Part of that formula for this team, if they're going to be successful anywhere against anybody, is dominating the glass. And I think by far and away, and we're going to get into team stats later on, but they got back to their formula tonight. And I have been begging in preview shows. I need to see Oscar Cluff be the dominant rebounder that he was through the month of November. And he was dominant. And by the way, not only was he dominant, but when he's boxing people out, TKR was dominant rebounding the basketball. And like, this is a make or miss league. And Greg Waddell from Sleepers and I were texting like throughout this game and like the highs and the lows of this game and everything else. And one of the things I said in the second half was like, this is a make or miss league. And we were making in the first half, Nebraska wasn't. Not an incredibly high percentage, but we were making more shots than they were. That flips in the second half for whatever reason. That's just part of it. Nebraska's game plan is like, we're going to make you shoot long jump shots, and let's see if you can do it for the entire 40 minutes. Well, it turned out Purdue couldn't. But Purdue's rebounding advantage is ultimately what decided this game. I'm curious at some point in this show, Joe, and if you want to address it now or we can address it later, but like it felt like Cluff's minutes were more limited in the last 10 minutes of the first half. And I know early on in the second half, his offensive rebounding advantages didn't seem as dominant as they were in the first half, but that was the clear advantage in the first half. And we can look at second chance points, first half to second half. Purdue was dominating in second chance points in the first half as well. And then it kind of went away for whatever reason. And then in overtime, obviously Rink Mass had fouled out at that point, but in overtime, it came right back. And to me, that's why they win the game. At some point, you and I are going to say something about just hit your friggin' free throws and this game's over. But but there's that also.
Nebraska's probably also saying that. because they were 13 of 20. It's not like Nebraska was too much better. Yeah, I mean, I agree with a lot of what you said. Like we can jump to the rotation. It's been a topic in the chats. So anybody that is new here watching on YouTube, thanks for tuning in. Color box means that that player played that minutes. Positions right down at the bottom between the shooting guard and small forward. At Purdue, it's very flexible. I don't really care if you want to argue one or the other for anyway. Basically, what you were referencing and some of the chat have been is in that second half, Cluff doesn't play the final set 6 or 7 minutes or so, opting to go TKR at the 5, Benner at the 4. I think it's probably two parts of like so obviously I mean we won't talk about Jacobson much. I'll just say I can just kind of cover it right now. It wasn't a Jacobson game matchup wise. Just a terrible matchup for Jacobson. They tried him, it didn't work. So you're not going to go back to Jacobson. I think there was a little bit of like Cluff was really tired with 7 minutes left. So then they went to Benner, try to go small because then on the other end, right, Purdue I think got more worried about trying to slow down Nebraska's offense, specifically with Mass's ability to pop and shoot the three, compared to maybe getting offensive rebounds. It's one of those that like hindsight's 2020, and if Painter had to do it over, he probably throws Cluff back in with 3 to 4 minutes left, if I were to guess. But also at the same time, I at least see the logic of right at that point too. Like Nebraska had started going more zone, they're pressuring more, like they are just making sure Purdue is putting up threes. You get then four shooters out there with Benner. Like I don't think it's the worst decision of all time. But at the same time, with just how much Purdue's offense relied on second chance points when they were dominant, it was a bit surprising to not see him back in there to close. But then he gets in for the overtime and right in overtime alone, Purdue had 6 offensive rebounds, 3 of them were Cluff. Like just cannot say enough about what Cluff did today with the rebounding and TKR as well, obviously. So yeah, just really impressive stuff there. That's some of the rotation. I'm just gonna kind of keep moving forward and we'll go from there, Kraig, if we need to.
I want to bring one more big picture thing up, right? Because
All right.
this is a Purdue team that has been under the microscope for the last 2.5 weeks, whatever you want to say. They've come off a string of losses. They got 2 more wins. The last one was ugly enough that a lot of people were even like treating it like it was like a loss, even though it was a win. Again, they went on the road, beat a top 10 team. I know Purdue's in front of them in Ken Palm, AP poll, Nebraska's in front of them, whatever you want to say. This was a big time matchup. This is only the 4th game of the entire season that Purdue has shot under 30% from three. And honestly, until I just pulled up the final stats, I had no idea we shot under 30% from three because it oddly felt like every time we needed a big three, we somehow got one. Like at certain point in times during this game. And we can talk about that more later on because I'm going to relative to certain players in this game. But this is only the 4th time Purdue shot under 30% from three on the entire season. And they did it against a top 10 team in the country and still came out with a win. Like, for their psyche, their emotional state, everything else, I think being able to go to Nebraska, not shoot your best, and still figure out with a way to come away with a win, I think this is going to pay long-term dividends going forward. So that's kind of my last big picture takeaway thing going forward.
Yeah, and it's like it is a good call out too. It's a lot easier to I don't know what exactly the reaction will be in the locker room. I assume it'll be relief and probably some excitement, and then obviously some realization of like, hey, still a lot of work to do. And this is 2 games in a row where it's a lot easier to talk about these games and move on after a win compared to a loss. And Purdue has figured out ways to win. I'm concerned that their inability to play for 40 minutes comes back to bite them in March. But on the same time, this they've been in enough of these. They're starting to figure out ways. Another point to like this just being a massive win. The wins above bubble stats, which is from Torvik, which I think is probably the single best stat to kind of utilize for bracketology. And I'm not huge into it, but it's basically my one-stop shop. Not perfect like any other stat, but I still think does a good job. Where wins above bubble, it just basically is just like what your resume would look like compared to like the average bubble team. For reference, last year the top 40 in wins above bubble all made the tournaments. I believe they were all like the at-large teams. So does a pretty good job. It jumped Purdue from, I believe, 11th to 7th, right? And again, it's not like the end all be all, but that's the jump from a 3 to a 2 seed in terms of that. So massive win, where things get flipped if Purdue doesn't get to figure it out, and they did. So we'll talk about the second half and all that, but I do think, like you've said, it was important to start out the show being like, hey, Purdue won. Purdue won, and I mean, probably not their toughest remaining game yet, because I would say home at Michigan's arguably tougher, but there's an argument to be made that this is their toughest game all season long. Just when you factor in it being on the road, not that they still at Iowa, home against Michigan, home against IU, home against Michigan State, not like easy by any means. So I'm
No.
rambling a little bit. Save me, Kraig. Where do you want to go?
I'm with you in terms of like for me, I just in passing conversations with friends, with people who watch the show, that communicate with me. Like to me, this was the most difficult game left on the schedule, and I understand Michigan is who Michigan is, but that's a game at Mackey. And like home game should be easier. Now we've seen a couple losses at home this year, and all of that. But like to me, this was the biggest red flag on the schedule left to go. It doesn't mean I think Purdue will necessarily win out. There's a chance they're gonna lose one of those or two of those down the stretch. But this was huge, absolutely huge. It's actually, I think on the entire year, this is the first game in a preview show either of us has called a loss, and we both called it a loss on the preview
Yeah.
show. So once again, what we're saying is don't follow us for gambling advice, Purdue fans. We do okay, but we're not perfect.
Definitely. And I do think, like, right, within this game, Purdue got some breaks. Some of it you earn by just playing well. Like, Nebraska doesn't shoot great to start from three, but I also think Purdue's defense was pretty good in the first half of at least making life tough on some of the shooters. Purdue goes ice cold from three in the second half, but like they built up a big enough lead that they could figure it out. So it all does work together. Yeah, a couple super chats. Let's jump into those, and then let's jump into some of the stats, and then kind of get it rolling forward from here. Kruder Schmidt 499 says Purdue was plus 17 in total field goal total attempt differential. Just dominant on the glass and forcing turnovers. Throws in the equation, basically just saying like factoring in like free throw attempts as well. Basically, Purdue got 17 more shot attempts, and you're going to win a lot of games if you get that many more looks. Purdue ends up actually having 3 fewer turnovers, even though it didn't really feel like it. Patel Boiler Up says, well, the 499 said Boilers had great intensity and effort to start. And that was good to see. And there was somebody else that commented it too, kind of just like, hey, it was great to see Purdue come out and actually just play well, like, and just look dominant, because we haven't seen that in a while. Stu Cipher 311 with the 999 super chat. If there was a comment, I don't see it. So, but either way, do appreciate the support from you and everybody. Kraig, do we have an ad read?
You were totally thrown tonight, man. And like I put in my notes, I've had so many different emotions throughout this game. Like the first half, I was like, yeah, we still are the best team in America. Second half, and like even in conversations with friends and other media people that I talk to, like second half, it was like, what are we doing? Like what are we actually doing? Why don't we have composure? Why can't we hit free throws? Why can't we do this? Why can't we do that? Overtime hit starts, and it's like, oh yeah, we're fine. Like they had a nice run, and then at the end of the game happens, and it's like everything falls apart again. So this was, if you're a Purdue fan watching this and you're like, my journey was a roller coaster, our journey was a roller coaster as well. We're a little bit flustered right now and everything else, but we do have an ad read. But I just want to point out, Joe, like kind of quickly before we do that, you mentioned that we went ice cold from three in the second half, right?
Well, it went ice cold really the last, like, what, 35 minutes of the game?
Right.
Or
We
the
actually
middle
shot.
25?
This is what's so deceiving to me. We actually shot better from three. We shot 32% from three in the second half, and we shot 26 for three in the first half. Like, so much happened during little 5-10 minute segments of this game that it's like we can't even
Yeah.
necessarily keep track of like where everything happened. But at the end of the day, I also just kind of want to impress once again. Thank you to everybody that is listening. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. We appreciate every single last one of you that tunes in and listens to the preview shows and the post game shows. But do want to thank one of our sponsors, BJ Rule, right now. So we're going to go to him. Purdue graduate and current Lafayette resident, BJ Rule has close to 15 years experience helping buyers, sellers, and real estate investors in Lafayette and surrounding areas. If you are looking to buy, sell, or invest in real estate, give BJ a call or text to set up an appointment to see how he can help you accomplish your goals. Your home will likely be the most expensive purchase of your life. Have the experts with Rainey & Company at Keller Williams on your side and let BJ help you navigate this process. Call 317-345-4600. Again, that's BJ Rule with Rainey & Company at Keller Williams at 317-345-4600. No, I do have one other
Appreciate.
thing I want to say before we get into player stats, real quick, if you don't mind.
Go for
And
it.
here's my thing. Here's my thing. Oz fans, and like I'll just be completely honest. Before I got into the media game and actually started covering this team, I had a different perspective, and I was definitely way more reactive to game situations than I was at looking at the team long term. And I'm not saying this to like judge any fan or how you react or anything like that, but I think it's really important to remember that as we look at this team long term, um, the coaching staff and everybody around that team is looking at what they can be in March and what their best version of themselves can be. And like, we were really hard on Cluff for a period. We were really hard on Lawyer for a period. We were really hard on this player, that player, whoever else. But the best version of this team is Oscar Cluff dominating rebounds, Fletcher Lawyer shooting 40% from three, all of those things. And like, that's got to play out because when you can nitpick and say from game to game, well, maybe it was better if this guy got another 10 minutes, 5 minutes, 8 minutes, and this guy sat and whatever. Well, then what does that do for that guy long term as we look at the end of the season? The best version of this team is Oscar playing next to TKR, them playing and both scoring efficiently. Oscar getting a lot of rebounds. The best version of this team is Fletcher Lloyd being one of the best 3-point shooters in the entire country. Like it's a long-term plan, not a short-term plan. So that's the last thing I had to say. I saw a comment pop up that was kind of alluding to that, and I just wanted to throw that in.
I think, yeah, that's a really good call out for sure. And I mean, when Purdue was up 21, I was kind of thinking my opening statement would be something along the lines of like, and again, I would like to preface that this was at halftime or whatever when Purdue was up and it looked like they were just going to kind of run away, which is like, actually, it's still true. Like, it is still true what I'm about to say. And that's regardless of what the outcomes are over the next, was it 7 games left for the regular season? Even if Purdue doesn't look great, and obviously we want them to kind of start peaking towards March. When you have Braden Smith, when you have Fletcher Lawyer, when you have TKR and Cluff on the glass, this team can win a national championship. Like, I don't care if they've been slumping. I don't care if they've lost 8 in a row. They are capable of just going on a run and winning 6 in a row. Now, getting contributions from other guys, making smarter plays, defending better, like that increases the margin of error, right? Where you don't have to play perfect. But this is a team that at the end of the day, even if Purdue ended up losing this is still a team that has the talent to go on a big run. Just have to see it be all put together, and we'll get there. 7 more games to that. So, yeah, we can kind of jump into the stats. Wisconsin, just bouncing around the Big Ten for a second. Wisconsin, they've cut the lead to 2 against Illinois. They were also down big. They are on the road though. Wagler, he just drilled like a big time 3 a couple seconds ago, but let you know how that one goes as we finish up. Let's get into the stats though right here. At a game that Purdue ends up winning 80-77. We've talked at length already about some of the rebounding and things like that, but I'll reread them right now. 54 rebounds to 37 for Purdue has 54, Nebraska 37. 21 offensive rebounds compared to only 6 for Nebraska, which leads to 17 second chance points for Purdue, 6 for Nebraska. 24 points in the paint and 28 for Nebraska. Both teams had 21 assists. Purdue 13 of 46 from 3. Without looking through the database, I'd have to guess that could be a school record for 3-point attempts in a game. Nebraska, not much better, though, 12 of 32. Both teams did not shoot the ball well. Free throw line, 11 of 20 for Purdue, 13 of 20 for Nebraska. And then 11 turnovers for Purdue and 14 for Nebraska. And I believe Purdue had 7, or Nebraska had 7 in the first half. Purdue had 4 in the first half, 6 in the second half, and then 1 in overtime. I do think that's another stat that we maybe haven't talked about a ton yet, but to me, like, Nebraska got back into the game in part because there's more to it, but part because of the turnovers. Like, it just felt like Purdue made some silly mistakes. Nebraska took advantage immediately and just it got the lead back to like 9, and it got the crowd going and the juice flowing. So that would be the other big stat I'd want to call out. Kraig, anything? I know we've talked through some of this already as we're close to 30 minutes into the show. Make sure to like and subscribe, everybody that is tuned in. If you're enjoying any other stats you kind of want to call out or talk more in depth about.
I know we've talked about the rebounding multiple times already at this point, but I still don't think we have emphasized just how absolutely insane it is that our two starting bigs had 33 rebounds tonight.
Yeah.
33, Joe.
And
That
Nebraska
is
as a team at 37.
ridiculous. And look, we talked about coming in this game. I know I made a big point of like Purdue's going to have to hit their open shots because Nebraska does not give up offensive rebounds. They are in the 90th, 89th after this game, 89th percentile in the entire country in defensive rebounding. And Purdue went out there and got 21 offensive rebounds. Like, if you're just going to throw something out to me that's like, well, like, what does Nebraska do well? What does Purdue do well? And what flipped this? If you're going to say Purdue was an underdog, like, what flipped this? It is singularly that, because Nebraska is a dominant defensive rebounding team, and Purdue just went out there and got 21 offensive rebounds and 17 second chance points. And I still can't for the life of me, even if there was a small stretch where Cluff wasn't as effective as he was in the first half, like, why we sat him on the bench so long. So I know you said, like, you can see the logic to it and everything else, but that still blows my mind too a little bit.
Yeah, and that's not to say that I'd fully agree with it, but more of just trying to give my guess of what the thought process was. Wisconsin's up 1, unless Wagler just made that and they're slow. I think Wagler got fouled. Wisconsin's up 1 with 35 seconds left. I know the Big Ten race isn't like a big time priority at this point, but like, if Illinois loses, then there's 4 teams that are 2 games back of Michigan, and Purdue still has Michigan, and Michigan has a tough stretch of Purdue, Illinois, at Illinois, at Iowa, home against Michigan State's, in addition to a couple other games. So, hey, Purdue wins out.
Still there.
Still got a chance of getting a Big Ten title. And I don't like, we're probably a bit, I don't know if anybody has ever said Purdue fans are spoiled, but maybe a bit spoiled of like, honestly, the bigger thing to me than winning the Big Ten
he missed a
tournament
second free throw. Missed a second free throw, all tied up at 81, 31 seconds to go.
You are just so far ahead of me. But what I was getting to is like, obviously the Big Ten title would be awesome, but like, that gives Purdue more of a chance at like a 1 seed or maybe a top 2 seed. And to me, that's almost like the bigger part. I obviously don't want to overlook a Big Ten title, but that's just where my mind is at with how Purdue is able to go. Man, I'm so far behind. Apparently, this game already goes to overtime. I'm watching Nick Boyd isolate right now, so sounds like that's going to overtime. In the meantime, let's talk through some of the player stats from this one. And there are some incredible stat lines, good, bad, not only weird. We'll talk about Cluff first, but briefly, like, I did not realize Lawyer put up 17 threes until I looked at this, and I didn't realize he only made 4 of those. Like, I was coming on here, I was like, oh yeah, Lawyer wasn't awesome shooting the ball, but I was like, yeah, he shot the ball fairly well, like probably 35%, and it's just, he put up 17. But let's start with Cluff. 12 points, 5 of 9 shooting, 2 of 5 from the free throw line, 10 offensive rebounds, 4 defensive rebounds, 2 assists, 2 blocks, and a turnover in 30 minutes of play. We've talked through it a little bit already, or through him. I mean, just an incredible performance. And you're hoping that this is the type of a performance that Cluff can really build off of and start expanding his game back to where it was, because Purdue was at their best when Cluff was dominant, and Purdue does not come close to winning this game if Cluff is not as impressive as he was today. I thought he did obviously a really good job on the glass, and it was just from the jump, right? Like, I think very first possession he got an offensive rebound. Really strong start. I thought in the first half he did a really good job of when he would get a smaller guy switched of just burying them in the post, and made a couple big time defensive plays, especially kind of being able to protect the rim. Both of his blocks, I think, came at really kind of pivotal moments within the game. So can't say enough about what Cluff was able to do. And I do think fans have a fair argument of like, why didn't he just play more down the stretch? But right, can't go back and change that. All we can talk about is how good Cluff was in this game.
No, and I 1000% agree with you, even though that's not an actual number. But nonetheless, I agree with you wholeheartedly because, like, my first 5 notes about this game, 4 of the 5 are about Cluff. And, like, I've, like, been begging for his physicality and aggression out of the gate, instead of it coming later in games. And in some cases, in a few of the past few games, it never felt like it did come. And tonight it came out early. Like, he was aggressive going for a shot. He was aggressive going for rebounds. And to me, I know we talk about sometimes like maybe TKR needs to dial back the playing angry portion. Cluff needs to, like, whatever TKR dials back, Cluff needs to absorb that. Like, we just need him to play angry. And I thought he came out that way just right out of the jump tonight and was just so impressive. And I mean, him and Trey were both great rebounding. Trey was more on defensive rebounds. Oscar was more on offensive rebounds. But like, Oscar's also only one of 2 players to finish above 50% shooting. Nope, 3 players. I forgot Jacobson went 1-1, but on volume, one of like 2 players to shoot over 50% in this game. So I don't know, man. Like, I thought Cluff was incredible. This is absolutely, like, definitively 100%. When March comes and Purdue gets into the national tournament, like NCAA tournament, this has to be the version of Cluff we have if there's any chance of winning an NCAA championship.
Yeah, and add on a fun Cluff stat: 10 offensive rebounds this game. He had 10 combined in the previous 6 games. The previous 6 games, and then Cluff has 10 alone today. Just incredible stuff. And like you said, like, Purdue needs him because Purdue is going to have off shooting nights at some point. Like, in the tournament, I'm talking. Like, they're going to have at least a couple games where it's just the shots not falling, probably. And when Cluff and TKR, especially Cluff, can do what they did today, that's where you get the second chance opportunities, and you just kill the spirit, right? Not to bring up the Illinois game right now, but like, Illinois' offensive rebounding won them that game, and just was like, it's one of those things where if Purdue can get back to that level of, right, you force this incredible offense into a miss finally, and then they just get the offensive rebound and put it back up. That's just so devastating to a defense. And I mean, it won't be my play of the game, but one of my favorite plays was, and I don't even remember if Cluff scored. I think he got fouled. It was just kind of a frustration foul for Mast, and it was in the second half at some point, and it wasn't anything crazy, but Cluff just fights Mast and gets the offensive rebound. And you literally, like, during the middle of the play, you just saw Mast just like let out this gigantic sigh, and then he immediately like frustration fouled. And it's just like, that's just got to be so frustrating to go up against, where it's like, all right, we finally forced a miss, and then you just get the ball right back. And so, again, can't say enough good things about Cluff today. Really impressed with what he was able to do.
And I think low key Cluff does. I think low key Cluff does better against other physical rebounders versus athletic rebounders. Does that make sense in terms of what I'm trying? Like, guys that are just quick twitch and can change position. When it's a, like, true, like, man on man, I'm gonna box you out. I'm gonna be physical and box you out. I think he's better against those type of guys, which Mast is to me. versus like a guy that's really going to shift position and react to the ball quickly. So, like, not going to say this is going to happen every single game, but again, Nebraska is at the top 89th percentile in the entire country in defensive rebounds, and Oscar Cluff got 10 offensive rebounds. Like, that's impressive. Either way.
Yeah, I don't think 10 should be the expectation, but having 10 in the previous 6 games, there's got to be some happy medium in between that's realistic. So, um, and I do think that's a good call out too. Like, I think he's not, Cluff's not, I mean, he has long arms, which helps, but he's not always the best at like perfectly getting the ball at the apex. And so he can lose to some athleticism on some of those. But when it's more of a ground battle, like that's where Cluff's going to be able to take over. Let's jump into Braden Smith because he almost had a triple double in this one. Would have been one of the weirder games to get a triple double. 13 points, 10 assists, 8 rebounds, 1 block, 2 steals, only 1 turnover, 2 of 6 from 2, 3 of 9 from 3. Did miss his only free throw, which was a front end. A game where early, like that first half, I just thought he was dominant in every aspect of the game. Some of the jumpers were falling. He was aggressive. Thought he was dissecting the offense very well with his passing. I do think in the second half, right in the midst of Nebraska getting back, Purdue got away from getting Braden downhill a little bit, and just thinking through if there's a way I can draw this on the board, if it's just easier to kind of explain it out loud. I'll try to go to the board for it because to me, like, right, not getting offensive rebounds, a couple more turnovers, those were things that contributed to Purdue's lackluster offensive second half. But I do at the same time think there's a bit of like Braden just not being able to get into paint. I thought in the first half, especially, Braden did a good job of like getting into right this kind of area right here, where from there, then Nebraska's going to collapse and you can kick out. And so, right, I thought they went away from it, and Purdue did a good job later. Like, I think later in the second half, when Purdue started knocking down a couple threes again, is like running Braden off of different handoffs where they did action like it's called zoom action or Chicago action, where it might be something like this TKR up at the top, something like this, and where they would also have basically like they'd bring the ball over here, like Lawyer would bring it over here or CJ or whoever, and then they kick it back. And as that's happening, Smith was running off here. And why that's effective is the way Nebraska's defense works is they're very much like, I mean, Purdue's defense is very, very similar to what Nebraska's is. This weak side, like if the ball is over here, right? This defender, whoever's guarding this guy, generally has to be over here. Like that's just part of the rules. Their kind of shell defense would be something like this, where they're going to always force into help, right? So if the ball gets swung here, they want to force baseline and rotate over. Like that's part of Nebraska. That's the core identity of Nebraska's defensive scheme. And so I'm just going to quickly erase and redraw it. I don't know if that's the most effective way to go about it, but we move. Right, as something like this was happening, you get this, balls flip back. So now as Braden's running off of this, if this is simultaneous, now Nebraska, like he has to really just try to shoot up the gap. And basically from there, he was kind of playing from behind. And generally, I think as Purdue was doing this, they would have like this guy clear to the weak side corner, and then maybe Lawyer drop down, or these like Benner could be interchangeable, just kind of going through more of the system rather than the exact positions. But basically what that would happen then, or force Nebraska to be in, is something like this, where you have here, Braden's coming off of this, and basically Braden's defender is now going to be caught back here. TKR's defender is going to be in this high hedge. Braden did a good job a few times of dragging this out and turning and getting downhill. He split it once to get in the paints. Sometimes he just kind of, worked his way back, and then from there tacked to get downhill. But especially this one, where he was able to really just kind of like, it's really more like this, where he was able to get here and just drag this out and turn that corner. And now basically, right, this defender has to step over, or this one, or one of them is, right, one of these defenders is, and then usually Purdue would have somebody flaring out back up top. Like if that was happening, I know this is probably a little confusing. I'm hoping I'm doing a decent job of explaining it, but pretty much like Braden's ability in the first half and later in the second half of turning that corner against the hedge, getting into the paint, it forced somebody to collapse. And there's a few times you saw Braden get kind of stuck in this area right here, just kind of pivot, work around. And that's where it felt like a lot of times this guy was coming up, or like if his defender came in, then he was lifting. If his defender came in, he was lifting, and it just generated looks. So I thought that was a big thing where there was a large stretch in the second half where Purdue simply just didn't get to those types of looks as much. Now, when you accompany that with um, Purdue not offensive rebounding, some turnovers, like I think all of those things coupled together gave Purdue that stretch where it just felt like they couldn't buy a bucket for, I don't know, 20 plus minutes of the game. So I hope that made at least some sense. Basically, summarized, Purdue was good when they got into the paint with Braden and bad when they didn't. So, why? There we go. Some technical difficulties on the back end there, but we're good now. So that's my intro into Braden Smith's game.
The technical
I'll throw it to
difficulties
you.
were the fact that I love when you go to a long board session because at 48 years old, it gives me a chance to go to the bathroom really quick. So,
There you go. I was
apologize
trying to
for the
stall that
technical
with you a little bit.
Okay, okay. Yeah, no, Braden, I thought Braden was really, really good in the first half. Like you said, I don't know if it was more a matter of what Nebraska was trying to do against him to prevent him from getting 2 feet in the paint, or just Purdue not going to more of him trying to get 2 feet in the paint, or him being less aggressive or whatever. But I had zero clue he was close to a triple double. None
None.
until you
Not at
mentioned it.
all. I knew he had the
Like
assist.
none.
Didn't know he had the rebounds.
No, I was not watching that whatsoever this game. So, yeah, like I mean, really incredible first half. We've had a couple of games now where like Braden's had incredible first halves and less in the second, and like all last year, it felt like it was the other way. It was like second halves were incredible, first halves maybe
Yeah.
not. So, I don't know. I don't know if that's Big Ten teams have seen him for 4 years. I talked a little bit earlier tonight on Twitter about the fact that I think this Purdue team is better built for March than it is for winning a Big Ten championship, which we can get into a long argument about that, going back to like the Katie and Painter years, early Painter years of how you have to build a team to do that. But I do think when we get to March and teams just haven't seen Braden or this Purdue offensive scheme as much as they have, that things are going to open back up offensively more than they look like right now against Big Ten teams. But that's a whole nother discussion for another day. Like, where do you want to go next here, Trey?
Just briefly more on Braden. Right. I thought he did a good job dictating for in totality, like 60% of the game. I agree with what you said. Like I thought his early second half was not great at all. It felt like lackluster, just kind of uh just not as forceful. There is also like and I don't know if fans have been commenting about this. I don't think I've seen many, but I'm just gonna throw it out there anyways. Like Nebraska plays a very specific system that like more than maybe any other game, there's less live reading because you just know like if Purdue's offense does this, that means Nebraska does this, which then opens up this. And a lot of times it's just going to be three. So like there is some element too of like you just know you have to get up threes. And I thought Braden was very active in trying to find those guys. So there is that part as well too. And then kind of just got stalled. And if Purdue had a decent shooting night, they also win. I guess you could. Nebraska shot 37%. So it's not like oh, yeah. I said earlier on the 3-point attempts that Nebraska didn't do much better. I totally misread. Nebraska was 12 of 32, 37%. They were much better from three. So let's go to TKR next. 6 points, 3 of 4 from 2, 0 of 1 from 3, 0 of 1 from the free throw line. 3 offensive rebounds, 16 defensive rebounds, 2 assists, and 2 turnovers in 36 minutes. I do not believe he had a field goal attempt in the first half. I believe his first half stat line was 0 points, 9 rebounds, 9 defensive rebounds, and 2 assists. Kraig, I'll throw it to you first for TKR because I've gone first on the other two.
I was so impressed with Trey in the first half. And I mean, coming into this game, like that Nebraska is going to send an aggressive double team on their bigs. And like we saw it against Zach a couple of years ago or 3 years ago, whatever that was now when we lost out there. I don't know how the years all fade when you're 48, but whenever we lost out there, like, I mean, their defense really flummoxed Edie. And going into this game, one of the keys was like our bigs are going to have to understand when that double comes, make the right read, make the right decision. And I thought he was so selfless tonight. Like he did not chase his points at all. He did not say like I got to go get mine. I got to be aggressive right here. He just made the right play over and over again. And honestly, that was the first thing that jumped out to me before I really even realized how many rebounds he was racking up. Like I wrote in my notes a couple of times, right pass, right decision, blah, 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 blah. And then I look up and I'm like, he's got 9 rebounds or seven, whatever it was, 8 rebounds in the first half. Like I just thought he was incredibly aggressive on the glass. But even more importantly than that, like the dude just made the right read. And so many of those threes that we did hit, even though we didn't hit a super high percentage, came off of those TKR kickouts to me, especially in the first half.
Yeah, I mean, my two big notes on TKR is he's working incredibly hard on the glass and he's been making really good decisions in the passing. Like, this is a game where he's just not going to get buckets. Now, he did have a really big floater. I mean, it ends up not being, I guess, I
Huge.
guess it still does, but with 10 minutes, just a tough floater quiets the crowd. There's a couple other players that just had shots like that too. But yeah, it's a game where like TKR, I think is just fully bought into his role. I obviously we don't know TKR psyche or anything like that. I don't feel like it bugs him that he's not this 20-point per game scorer like he could be if he really wanted to. Maybe you could argue Purdue might need it every once in a while from him, but like in a game like this, I think he's content just taking his 4 shots, working hard on the glass, playing pretty good defensively, and just living with that. So that like it can't be overlooked that at least seemingly on the outside, it doesn't feel like TKR has been there's no part of how he plays where I'm just like, oh, he's mad that he's not averaging 22 a game or
Yeah.
whatever he averaged last year. Like, I don't think there's any part of him in that. And like, that is a big credit to him. Like, it could be very easy for a guy to average 21, have all American preseason hype, and be like, yeah, I'm going to be the guy next to Braden Smith. Like, give me 25 touches a game. And that's not what he's become. And some of it too is TKR. I think defense is really focusing on TKR. This game's a bit different, just they're going to double everybody, but
Right.
just I want to call that out too because I do think like that is something in the grand scheme as we are 24 games into the season, like this is TKR's role now, and he seems to be fine with it. So, did you have anything you want to follow
I
up with?
yeah. Real quick, I do want to call this out because Tammy Wallen put this in there and said thought when TKR got caught on the face and was bleeding, he'd start to lose it, but he didn't. And I've like we've mentioned a couple of times about like TKR's emotional state on the court. And like early on in this season, Joe, you and I were like calling out that we loved that he was playing like this ultra aggressive. And then there was a stretch there where it's like, but is he playing smart? like is the aggressiveness getting to the point where he's making bad decisions or he's making bad fouls, all of that. And like TKR like was in his head tonight in terms of like being focused, being calm, not letting anything get to him all night long. So I think that's a really good call out from Tammy. Just that like
Definitely.
Trey was focused. That Trey was focused and Trey was calm and just making the right play, the right read, whatever else. Didn't let any of the other physicality bother him. So just want to say that real quick or like
Yeah,
highlight that.
yeah, no, that's definitely a good call out too. I'm going to shut the chat for a second because, at least for myself, because Wisconsin's up 2 with 15 seconds left, and I don't want to be spoiled. So, but we'll keep the show rolling right here as we talk through this. Let's go to lawyer, and then I think we can. I think there's time also to talk on some of the other players as well. 18 points on 5 of 20 shooting, 4 of 17 from three, 4 or 5 from the free throw line, 3 rebounds, 3 assists, 1 turnover, and a steal. Do you like? I think my overall take is he played better than what his box score shows, even though he put up 18, 3, and 3. But it's just it's just jarring to see the 17 from 3. I don't know. There was no part of me at any point where it's just like, oh man, lawyer's got to get out. He just can't hit a shot or do anything. Like I thought he's aside the one really this turnover was just a pretty bad pass if I remember correctly. Aside from that, it felt like he was pretty composed. He was making the right decisions. Like I don't think he was forcing any. Um, you also have to just take some of those shots against this Nebraska defense. Defensively, I thought for the most part he held up. Nebraska tried attacking him with Hoiberg. They got one bucket, but other than that, I don't think they really did specifically in just like one-on-one. I don't know. Probably one of the weirder Lawyer games overall to judge. But I think my takeaway is he was solid and just again, 4 of 17 is what it is from three.
Yeah, I honestly didn't know he took 17 threes. And I think when you don't realize how many shots a guy has taken, that generally is because they all came in flow, right?
Yeah.
And what Nebraska wants to do is force you into being a jump shooting team, force you into being a three-point shooting team. And other than maybe one or two, and I feel like those were even late shot clock, and he just had to put up a shot. Like, I don't feel like anything came out of rhythm or came out of flow
No.
or was a bad shot in any way, shape, or form. And honestly, I think it's probably because he hit a couple of early threes that I didn't realize his shooting percentage was as low as it was. But like this is who Nebraska is. Like, they force you into a ton of threes. If anybody's going to put them up and super high volume for Purdue, I think you want it to be Fletcher. Obviously, you want to see that volume tick up. The last two games have. I don't think this is any sort of like bad sign that the percentage is going back down or whatnot. It's against Nebraska. Even though they give up a bunch of threes, they also contest threes really, really well. Is what it is. He's going to end up putting up a lot of shots. And by the way, down the stretch, who came up with a really another big rebound again on a free throw?
On a free throw, right? Yep. I had that play starred too. Like it was just another one. It's just like, oh, Lawyer somehow ends up with this rebound off of a free throw in
And
the biggest
how?
moment
Like
of the entire
how?
game. I don't know. 2 games in a row. That's smart player. He's gonna like we know the physical limitations, and sometimes that gets him in trouble defensively. But like Lawyer plays hard, he plays smart, and I guess that's just kind of how you end up with some of
Yeah.
those.
He also drew, and I don't remember if it was in regulation or overtime now. Like, my notes all flowed together because this game just seemed to have so many swings. Oh, no, 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 no. It was around the 6:40 mark when like Nebraska was coming back, and I thought we maybe shut them down. Did a really nice job of drawing an offensive foul there too. Like, he just tends to
Yes.
do that. He's not
Yeah.
drawing as many charges as he used to. And by the way, Joe, on the Boilers in the Stands Facebook page, we had a question during this week about should more guards be trying to charge fouls like Benter is, and the fact that Benter's drawing them. And I kind of responded for both of us, and I hope that's okay. But the
Okay.
mention basically was like, with the way the NCAA is looking at that rule now and legal guarding position, it is incredibly, incredibly hard to draw a foul. And for whatever reason, like nobody else on this team can get a charge other than Benter, and Benter just keeps getting them game after game after game. So that I didn't know if it would be a great idea for everybody to start chasing charges, but like Lawyer still figured out a way to draw, a foul on that play, and he's really, really smart, really, really heady. But man, it's really hard to get a charge these days.
It is. And yeah, the foul that he drew was on a moving screen. Did a good like it was very much a moving screen. Boyer did a good job of selling it, but it wasn't even like it was very clearly a moving screen. Yeah, I think Benner's just like good at taking charges. He's just there earlier than most other guys. Um I assume since there was no reaction. Oh, okay, so I assume I'm not spoiling for anybody for the Wisconsin Illinois game. If I just say the final score really quick. I'm waiting for a
Yeah,
confirmation from you,
no,
Kraig.
no, well, I was watching it on my screen, and Wisconsin just won. And
Yep.
while we're at it, I got to bring up this starred comment relative to that. Where is it? Hold on. There we go. Blake Widmer said Craig's son is a diehard Wisconsin fan. I'm sure he's watching. Haha. Yes, my son is. He lives in Wisconsin with my ex-wife, and he is a huge Wisconsin fan. And of course, I was watching, and I'm sure we will exchange texts later tonight. But even more importantly for us Purdue fans, Purdue is squarely back in the Big Ten race because now, if
Yeah.
Purdue beats Michigan at home, like there's a pretty decent chance Michigan's gonna just catch a loss somewhere else. They lost to Wisconsin, just like Illinois did. Like there's a pretty decent chance they're gonna catch one more. If Purdue can figure out a way to win this out, there's at least a chance they get a share of the Big Ten title.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that is like Purdue's not dead in the Big Ten title race. I put their chances very low still. It's still very much Michigan's to lose, but the chances are a lot higher after today than they were just a few hours ago. So go, wanted just to bring that up as we are getting into the point where, Big Ten title race, seeding, like all that stuff is going to start really mattering. So wanted to make sure that we bring that up. Did you have anything else on Lawyer? I think we kind of were able to move on from there, right?
No, we can move on.
Yeah, let's go to CJ Cox. In a game where, I think he hit a couple really big time shots for Purdue. 11 points on 4-13 shooting, 3 of 10 from 3. Didn't know he took 10 threes, going to be honest. 2 rebounds, both of them being offensive, 3 assists, a turnover, and a steal in 30 minutes. Kraig, I'll throw it to you for this one first.
I guess my thing with CJ here is like at the end of the day, you're going to look at it and say it was an elite 3-point shooting game. Like, no, you're not. He shot 30%. That's just slightly above his average in Big Ten play. But the argument I would make, Joe, is like all 3 of those threes were monstrous. When I still thought we were going to win in regulation and Wisconsin, or not Wisconsin, Nebraska was coming back. I put those 2 threes CJ hit in a 3-game stretch or 3-series stretch as like that was going to be my play or series of the game in terms of
Yep.
just like helping put this away and help ice it. And then he hits another big 3 in overtime. Like shooting percentage wasn't great. It wasn't. I still guarantee you hitting those 3 threes in those important moments is going to pay dividends for him going forward to try to get back on track. The only other thing I would say, also, he had some big offensive rebounds. They didn't necessarily pan out in terms of like turning into Purdue points, but like in the moment where he got the offensive rebound, it seemed like a big deal. One of those ended up being a jump ball, but it still like killed another 2 or 3 seconds towards the end of the game. But like, I don't know. You're going to talk about him defensively more probably because we did a heck of a job on Sanford, but like I just thought for when those plays happened offensively, they were huge. I would like to see him in that very first shot he hit. He dribbles into an 18-footer, and I say this about Meyer. I said this about CJ in the last post game. Like dribble into that 18-footer. You're friggin' money from 15 to 18 feet. Just dribble into that puppy, shoot the easy one, give that ball fake, whatever. I'd like to still see him do that a little bit more, but it's good to see him like knock down important shots.
Yeah, he never shied away is the big thing. Like he started 0-2 in the first half, and then he finished 3 of 8 between the second half and overtime. And I also had a couple of his or 2 of his threes really start as really pivotal shots. You talk about the pull up twos. I'll read the stat again. Now doesn't include today's game, I don't believe. So I guess we'll add one more. But including that, 16 of 28 on pull up twos on the season, which is like 58% or something like that. He can knock those down. It was just good to see him again continue to just not care, and in a good way of like he doesn't care that he's shooting 29% from 3 during conference play, or that he hadn't hit a 3 in 2.5 games by the time he hit his first one in this one. All right, he has 0 for 3 last game, 0 of 2 the game before, 0 of 2 to start the first half. It didn't matter. He's going to keep firing. He's going to keep shooting, and Purdue needs that, and they need him to knock down shots. They need somebody to knock down 3-point shots. Primarily, the focus goes to him, and he made some very big ones. Defensively, I thought he was good. He had a really it's one of those where he has such a tough matchup of just running after Price the entire game that there's just going to be a few mistakes. Right, Purdue's defense is not built to guard that, although they did a pretty good job for the most part. Like CJ just fought, and in a game where I think Nebraska, I truly and I guess Nebraska did miss some open threes, which helps. But like in a game where I didn't know how Purdue was going to slow Nebraska down at all, which is how their defense has been played. I thought CJ, even Jakari, like I thought they both did good jobs of just at least making it difficult. Nebraska still got some decent looks that they missed. Sanford's included in that, but like there wasn't aside like the wide open threes that they let happen. I feel like were guys that for the most part you're fine with. Like Bear K was 0 of 2, you live with that. Cale Jacobson goes 2 of 2. Unfortunate that he makes them both, but you live with those. Jared Garcia 0 of 2. Like you live with some of those. So I thought it was a good effort, and you can't say enough about the big time shots that he did end up hitting in this one. You want to jump into the bench?
Yeah,
You
and
want you got
like,
more?
have we just real quick on that standpoint, like, have we given Purdue enough credit for their defensive effort tonight? Because like, I do think, especially in the first half, right? I thought especially in the first half, like Nebraska just missed some open threes, but they're the Ken Palm 37th best team in the country. And like coming into this game, you're like, okay, Purdue or Nebraska does all this off ball cutting action. They shoot 3-point shots at a really high percentage. They have a pick and pop threat. And like I just pulled up Ken Palm. Purdue was 29th, I think, in Ken Palm defense going in this game. They jump all the way to 21. Now, again, that can be minute differences between 20 and 30, but nonetheless, like they jumped a significant margin off this game. And Price Sanford has been a menace lately in the Big Ten. And he still gets 15 points, but they make him super, super inefficient, make him go 4 or 12 from the field tonight. Like, have we given Purdue's defense enough props on the night?
Yeah, I thought it was a much better effort. I still don't think it was perfect from them defensively, but also given how Nebraska runs their offense, like it's probably close to as good as Purdue could do. Um,
Right.
Also, it does help Purdue's defense. Hey, it looks better when teams aren't drilling 50% of their threes. It's funny how that kind of works, but some of that, like you said, is because of Purdue's effort too defensively. It's not all just the other guys missing wide open threes. Like you make life tough on Price Sanford. You don't let Sam Hoiberg get going. Mass was really the only one that got going with the pick and pop action, and I mean, really, I feel like the pure pick and pop was probably only one or two of those, and then probably two or three was more just like they run this little flare action for him, and Purdue just wasn't ready for it somehow, or at least the players didn't recognize it right away. So, it just a good job overall of forcing some turnovers, some of them unforced from Nebraska, not letting Nebraska get any second chance points. We figured that Nebraska or second chance opportunities really only 6 rebounds. Um, in a game where like Purdue should dominate the defensive glass, and then you just kind of have to live with if guys make tough shots, they make tough shots, and luckily for Purdue, they didn't. And that's like to me, this is the type of game that Purdue's defense just has to get to, where you force some turnovers. I like them being able to force more turnovers if they're going to play this kind of high hedge defense, and then you just have to make shots as difficult as possible. And I thought that they did that. So I think that starts with a lot with CJ and his efforts. I thought Cluff was good in terms of some of his rim protection. Some of the off-ball stuff still had some work to do, but at the same time, you were able to do enough to get this win, and that's what matters. And I guess that's a good transition, I think, to Jakari from CJ. Shocker there that we're going to lump those two similar together. 7 points, 2 of 4 shooting, 1 of 3 from 3, knocked down the final 2 free throws of the game, 1 turnover and 1 steal in 13 minutes. Don't think that we have to go super in depth on Jakari, but I thought similar to CJ, did a solid job on Sanford in terms of navigating the off-ball stuff. Was it perfect? Probably not, but was it good? Better than I expected? Absolutely. Knocked down knocked down a big 3, got it. He also got, I believe, into a mid-range pull-up somewhere in there to get his first basket. Again, not like, this isn't a game you're like, oh, wow, Jagari was incredible, but I thought he made the plays when he was in that he was supposed to. And also an insane stat from the broadcast, did not realize he's shooting 50% from 3 on the road and 16% at home. Had no idea about that. So, like I said, I don't have like a ton on Jakari. Thought it was solid in his minutes.
Yeah, and I don't want to sound like braggadocious of the two of us or anything else, but there's so rarely is there a stat that I hear on the broadcast that I'm like, what?
Yeah.
Like when I heard that, I was like, wait, what? Like how did Joe and I not catch this to this point in this season?
Yeah.
That he's shooting so much better on the road than he is at home. But like Man, I'm not gonna lie. I thought Jakari was really, really good, especially in the first half when he had his minutes. Knocks down that three, and like just as importantly, I unlike CJ, like I'm not used to Jakari dribbling into a 10 to 15 footer. Like that's not his game. It's usually three or rim. So the fact that he did that so confidently when he hit that, I thought was really, really good. I thought he was good defensively. Only ends up with 13 minutes tonight, but I mean, it felt like they were just valuing 3-point shooting, and he didn't. He actually shot a higher percentage than Cox, but I think it's just probably more
You
confidence
just
in
trust
Cox
CJ, yeah.
over, over a larger volume of minutes there. Like I thought Jakari was good. I really did. We got to go to Benner next because I want to
Yep.
wax poetic on Benner.
I'll read a stat line and then you can take it away from there. 7 points, 2 of 5 from the field, 1 of 3 from three, knocked down 2 free throws, 3 offensive rebounds, 1 defensive, an assist, 2 turnovers, and 2 steals in 19 minutes. Take it away, Craig.
Like, can we just acknowledge at this point, and I know Purdue's had multiple players like this, and like one of them that jumps out to me is like Brian Cardinal. Like he's not the prettiest thing in the world in terms of the way he goes about it or anything else, but like Purdue fans love. Can you drop the stat box real quick? Purdue fans love players that just make winning plays. Like that's like nothing gets Purdue fans more excited than guys that just go out there and play tough and make winning plays. And Jack Benner is going to be a 4-year favorite for Purdue fans this season because, like, I mean, there was a series there where he saves a loose ball, calls a timeout where he's like falling out of bounds, immediately comes back on the next play, gets an offensive rebound, gets fouled, makes 2 free throws. Did he shoot a crazy high percentage tonight? No. I mean, he was 2 of 5 from the field, 1 of 3 from three, but like didn't go off or anything. Had 4 rebounds, had 1 assist, had 2 turnovers, had 2 personal fouls, but like you just watch him play and you're like, he impacts winning. He knows how to affect games in the right way. He knows how to make intellectual plays. Like I don't know. He could finish this Purdue career never averaging more than 10 points a game. And I think he's just going to be one of those guys, almost like in a Grady Eifert way, that like people just buy into as like he's our glue guy. He makes the right play 90% of the time. In tough plays. In tough plays.
Yeah, like I thought Benner was pretty poor in the first half, and then it just didn't matter because in the second half, he made all of the plays. 3 offensive rebounds in the second half in only 10 minutes. Felt like all of them came at the right time. He gets that steal, forced with the timeouts, and then comes down, knocks down 2 free throws, knocked down his only 3 point attempt in the second half. Just yeah, one of those games where it shows like, oh yeah, Benner can just make plays and right. I understand there's definitely the argument for Cluff to be in down the stretch over Benner, but like at the same time, it's not like Benner himself was the reason that Purdue was kind of losing the lead, right? Benner made a lot of the plays where it really helped keep Purdue either with a little bit of a lead or just keep them in it. Like he hits the big time three after Lawyer draws that offensive foul that we talked about earlier. Just yeah, a really tough game from him in terms of just like his toughness and being able to do what was needed.
Tenacity.
Yeah, that one. So yeah, I don't got much more than that with Benner because I think you nailed a lot of it. There was a comment. I'll just bring it up now. JBGX4LG says, does Joe know who Brian Cardinal is? Like, I know the name. I couldn't. If you asked me to like pick out who Brian Cardinal is at Mackey, I wouldn't be able to do that. I know the name at least though, but at some point I got to dig in deep to my Purdue history and really dive into some of the elite player or the known players and teams. But today is not that day, so we can jump into. I think the only other player, like, is there anything you want to talk about with my? I think is there anything you want to talk about with Meyer or Jacobson? I'll read their stat lines. Meyer, 3 points, 1 of 4 shooting, 1 of 3 from three, 2 rebounds, a turnover, and a steal. Jacobson, 1 of 1 from the field, 2 fouls, a turnover in 5 minutes. It really just didn't feel like either of their games. Jacobson had to be out in space. Meyer hasn't played this type of defensive system where it's like you just have to make the right read at the right moment every single time, or else Nebraska punishes you. It just felt like neither of their games to me, and then nothing really more than that.
Yeah, no, I mean, I don't have a whole lot other than to say that. I don't know that either of them played poorly, or played great one way or the other, but I'm 100% with you of like, if you're gonna nitpick Myers' defense, like I've talked about recently, I thought he's kind of been a spark plug one-on-one defensively in terms of just manning up and guarding a guy on the perimeter at times when we needed that to happen. Has gotten a few steals that's led to transition buckets, but like this isn't that game. This is a game where like elite communication and connectivity is needed from your defense. So I think that limited his playing time. I also think like this just the way Nebraska plays defense. You probably want your best, just like pure catch and shoot 3-point shooters out there. And while Meyer has technically been better than a couple of the guys that got some more minutes today, like long term, those guys are looked at as better 3-point shooters and probably trusted just a notch more in that spot by Painter right now.
Yeah, and just given like this, he only had one turnover. Meyer did. It felt like if he started playing more, the turnovers. It's one of those where the turnovers could start racking up. Um, Brady went through this too, and Braden's figured that out. And again, I will acknowledge again, Braden Smith is better his freshman season than what Meyer is, obviously. But there is just some of those parallels of like Braden at time had to figure stuff like this out too, and things like that. Quick side note, I'm gonna just self plug. On Feed the Post. I put out an article on Braden Smith. I watched every single pick and roll from his this season. A lot of in-depth stats, film breakdown, some call out back to his high school film. So that's Feed the Post and Substack if you want to go check that out after listening to this. That brings us where we've talked through all of the players. I think we've talked through all of the stats. We've talked through some of the offense, some of the defense. I guess the only other thing on defense, like I thought Purdue did a good job for the most, like 95% of the time of knowing when they were switching and when they weren't. So they got burned once or twice on it, but for the most part, I thought they did a pretty good job of communicating those, which was a gigantic concern of mine going into the game. If you don't have anything else, we
Hey,
can get into.
I think
You did.
there's one big elephant in the room we have to talk about. And it is one of our started comments that we would have gotten to anyway. But like we've seen free throw shooting go up and down throughout the year. And like honestly, I thought we turned a corner, like where that no longer was a concern. But like, how concerned are you about free throw shooting? Um, Four of the free throw shots that were missed were by Lawyer, Smith, and CJ down the stretch of regulation. And I believe both Lawyer and Smith's were front ends of 1-on-1s. Maybe Lawyer's wasn't. I know Smith's was.
Smith was.
Um, was Lawyer's not?
I don't believe so because I think he made the second.
Okay. But like how generally when we have bad free throw shooting nights, it's because like all the free throws are being taken by TKR and Cluff or Jacob. Well, Jacob has actually shot pretty well, but like by our bigs, not our guards. But this seemingly like creeps up every now and again. And like, just how concerned are you about it? And why does
Um,
it happen, Joe? Tell us why, Joe. Tell us why this happens.
well, see, Purdue players, they just want to make fans mad, so they're like, "I'm gonna miss this one on purpose." They're just like, "Yeah, let's miss these right here." I don't know. It's just one of those things. Like it just happens. Honestly, I'm looking at the stats now. CJ is 82% on the year. I thought he was much worse than that from the free throw line. Um, Truthfully, didn't have a ton of confidence when he went to the line, although that's probably just because Purdue had let up a 21-point lead. Braden also seems to randomly just miss these kind of down the stretch, and he has a really quick routine. Like this is over analyzing at its finest. Like, but he has a really quick routine. Like that could be some of it. Lawyer missing the one is just, I mean, what he goes 4 or 5. It's not a concern. Cluff's is like the one where it's like actually like he's 57% during Big Ten play. He's 69% on the season. It's been a very big downward trajectory. He shoots very flat. I don't think he's like an awesome free throw shooter. I don't. It just kind of is one of those things where it is what it is. You don't expect CJ to miss two. Like if CJ makes both, Braden even just splits his, like it's at least a little bit right difference where then you're 14 of 20 and it's not the end of the world. I don't know. It's just one of those things like I guess you just make them or you don't. Hopefully it doesn't come back to bite them. On the positive side, Purdue won despite doing that. So yeah,
Yeah.
that's kind of where
I
I'm at with
mean,
that.
Casey Bartley from Hammer and Rails has like kind of brought up multiple times like Braden is low key down the stretch, not necessarily a like a dead eye free throw shooter. If you look past his history in terms of his percentages, sometimes he'll just randomly miss front end of a 1-and-1 or 1 of 2 towards the close of games. I honestly was more shocked with CJ. I did know CJ was that good from the free throw line. And I was like, when he got the ball, I was like, okay, done. Like over, boom, we're good. I was shocked about that. But anyway, we can get to play the game, player of the game ball, whatever the hell we call this shit now.
We should just call it player of the game because we never call it game ball, and then we're always like, "Oh, game ball." Like we should just change it to player of the game. Um,
Oh, I didn't
but
mean to hit that. All right.
I'll let do you want actually no, I'm gonna take player of the game first because I was hard on Cluff after last game. Again, I acknowledge that me saying anything has literally zero effect on anything. But it was just awesome to see him be able to bounce back. Purdue does not win this game without him, so he will be my player of the game, my game ball. We'll just double up and call it both, I guess.
Fair enough. I'm gonna go right back to the rebounding, man. Because I honestly don't think shooting won us this game in any way, shape, or form. So like I don't want to lean into points for the game ball. So I'm gonna go to Trey. Like I thought it was just an absolutely dominant performance from our bigs, and maybe just as importantly as the rebounding is like his decision making. Again, I thought he was so incredibly selfless. I thought even though he only gets credited for 2 assists on this game, like I just thought his passes out led to made baskets by other people again and again and again. 19 rebounds, Joe. 19. Like everybody said last year, like Trey can't be a dominant big because he doesn't actually rebound the ball at a high level. 19 rebounds in a game. So like I've got to go there, and I'm really just trying to buy time so I can figure out what my play of the game is going to be at this point.
There's like 8
Because
of them.
I'd written down so many different play of the games over the course of it. I don't know. Riff for a second. Talk about something. I need to look this up again.
Um, do you want me to just go with mine and you just forfeit the
Yeah,
right
go
to
ahead.
pick
Go.
first?
Yep. Go ahead. Go ahead.
I'm gonna. I mean, there really is just like 55 or not 55, but like I have like legitimately 9 marked down, and I didn't even mark any down in overtime, um, because I had already set up assuming that this game was not going to go to overtime. So I'm just gonna go. It's plays coupled right next to each other of the game. Lawyer draws the offensive foul. And then the very next offensive possession, knocks down a three. It was coming off of what I broke down earlier on the board with Braden, where he came off that zoom action, he got into the paint, and then kicked it out. I forget if it was a hockey assist or if it was just a purely assist to Benner, but those two plays back to back in a period where I think Nebraska had cut it to 5. Purdue gets it back to 8. I know obviously Purdue ends up still losing the lead, but like to me that was just such a big moment. There's like I'll let you say and then you can talk about yours a little bit and then let's just like quickly throw out all the other ones I know that we want to say.
I honestly don't even know what you said. I was trying to search through mine, so I'm hoping that I don't say the same thing. But here's where I'm going to go because I just want to emphasize the rebounding, the offensive rebounding so much. 71 to 68. Fletcher makes a three that puts us up 71 to 68. Cluff gets a rebound, offensive rebound. I know he misses the front end of that, but he hits the second. That takes it to a 4-point game. And like to me, that just exemplifies what this game was about because that makes it a 2-possession game going down the stretch. So I'm gonna go with the Cluff offensive rebound, which leads to a foul and him getting 2 free throw shots and at least hitting 1 and 2. which kind of changes. This was at 450. Kind of changes the trajectory of the game at that point in time. I don't know why. I thought that was further along at that point. I'm so sorry. I thought there was another Oscar Cluff offensive rebound later. What the heck am I talking about? I'm lost.
I
I'm
mean,
lost, Joe. Save me. Save me.
Uh, there's the whole like uh after the free throw where CJ like tips it to Braden, I think, or tips it to Lawyer drives and dumps it down to Cluff, who gets the and one at the ends to actually go ahead.
There we go. Let's do that.
That
Let's do
probably
that. Let's do that.
that probably thinking through that probably should be play of the game. So there's that. I
I'm
mean,
sorry. I'm sorry.
CJ's threes, Benner's steal, the TKR floater, Cluff's block, even the first play of the second half where Purdue just came out and
Yeah.
drilled a three. Like there's just so many plays that you can kind of run through, I think, in this one. So let's get to some of the
Yeah.
start comments and then we'll get out of here unless you had something else really quick.
No, I just I was dead set on CJ's threes until it went into overtime, and then that all went down, and we came right into the show, and I was like, I have no idea what I'm gonna pick for my play of the game. So I pulled up the overtime play-by-play, and I misjudged where the front and the end of the overtime play-by-play was. But go ahead, let's go. Let's go. Start comments.
Jared Goodell 499 said, "What do you attribute Cluff's rebounding slump to, and why did he solve it tonight despite guarding Mest on the perimeter?" I mean, for him, it was right. It was a lot of offensive rebounding where it just felt like he was like I thought he just wasn't physical the last handful of games. I thought he looked just a little bit out of it, and today was the exact opposite, and it was right from the start. I think Nebraska's system, even though they are very good defensive rebounding, like at times it can force them to be in rotations, and it felt like Cluff just took complete advantage. But more than anything, and I think you'd probably agree with this, is just effort, just physicality, positioning, like just all those kind of lumped together got Cluff back into where he's been.
So I do agree with that, but this is what I'm going to ask you about that, Joe. Is there was a lot made in a few of the last few games about the offensive system drug Cluff so far away from the basket that he couldn't have an impact on offensive rebounding. And theoretically, coming into this game, Reek Mass could have had the same ability to do that. So, was there anything Purdue did differently, guarding or position wise, on where Cluff was, or was this just the matter of Purdue staff emphasizing crash back hard anytime that shot goes up when it happens?
I would lean that. I don't have a great answer truthfully off the top of my head, but I do lean more of just like Cluff was in the spots where he was able to just go and just crash and did it for the entirety of the game. So yeah, Salty B with $5 said, "Great to see Purdue's players fighting through screens, communicating, and hustling." It's very good to see that because it's not a common theme, I would say, over the last handful of weeks. Jason Depew, 1999 super chat said, "Made the start comments. Woohoo. Thanks for the content as always, guys. Everyone hit the like button. Game ball TKR, player of the game, play of the game, Jakari's free throws to seal it." I mean, yeah, like I know
Yeah.
it gets lost
Somebody
probably
finally
because
hit some.
Nebraska's, yeah, like it gets lost because Nebraska slips, but at the same time, Nebraska would have had to have shot a three to try to tie it, and Jakari's both free throws down the stretch can't be overlooked. Tammy Wallen 999 says, "Thanks for all you guys do in such a positive way. Boiler up." And then Dave H 1999 super sticker. I don't think the way that our back end system works, we don't get to see that, but I believe in the YouTube chat you'll be able to see that. So we do really appreciate the support. Tyler Smith with a 1999 said, "Appreciate you guys. Boiler up, big W. I refuse to feel any disappointment in any way about a top 10 road W where they could have folded completely several times and did not." And I think, again, I
Yeah.
kind of pointed that out earlier in the show, but like I think that's a great callback too here from him of like, there's a very real chance where Purdue just folds in overtime and loses this game. And yes, it wasn't pretty, but they figured it out. And that's like is something to credit to them that they were able to still figure it out enough in one of the toughest environments in the Big Ten. I don't know if you had anything for that. You look like you did, but if not, I'll jump to the next. And it's from our very
No.
own.
But before we get to Greg, Joe, I just remembered why I forgot my game ball, because this was my game ball. This
Oh,
is why
yeah.
I started. My game
Yep.
ball was to the Purdue team huddle, dropping sweat on the floor, which led to the slip.
There it
A little bit
is.
of sarcasm, but also like that happened. So
It
I
was a
just
really stress-free like last 3 seconds then because of that, where it's just like, oh, all right, I guess that's how this game is gonna end. Yeah, it's just one of those things. It's just kind of all right. Those are the breaks. Braggs with $5 says, "You guys are still live. Not my fault. Thanks for the well wishes to mom. Disregard any text I sent you at the end of the game. Boiler up." Honestly, wasn't. I'm especially in pivotal moments. I'm just somebody that doesn't just don't look at my phone. So I actually haven't read these. Maybe I won't. Maybe I'll just take his word and just move on from there. A few more star comments to get through, and we do appreciate everybody supporting. Obviously the super chats and all that supports us a lot, but simply coming in here, commenting, liking, subscribing, like those all also go a very long way. I mean, we appreciate all of those as well. Blake Widmer. So I'm just going to read through these. You jump in if you have anything, but I'm just going to kind of keep going. Blake Widmer, lawyer, made a great play there at the end with the reverse pivot post feed to Cluff. That was such a Braden Edie type play. That's actually, I didn't think of that, but that's a very good call out of that's something that we saw so many times where Braden would get into the paint, pivot around, and then eventually get it to Edie and lawyer to Cluff, just like everybody drew it up and expected off of an offensive rebound off of a free throw. Because yes, Lynn Ream, game ball, the Cluff Meister. I think that would be probably pretty much everybody's first choice. Brad Widmer said going into this game, coaches were talking about taking good shots versus waiting for a great shot. I think that factors into the early shot clock open threes. That's a good point. Against this Nebraska defense, you're not always going to get great looks. Sometimes you do just have to be willing to put up the good ones. And I think we saw that with Lawyer putting up 17 and neither of us thinking that he really took any bad ones. Tammy Wallen says we only have 7 more regular season games with these seniors. Enjoy every minute. It's true. It's crazy. It's basically mid-February already. I think less than 7 weeks until a champion is crowned, or less than 8 weeks. One of the two. So we're getting there 50 something days. Um, until
yeah.
hopefully Purdue is hoisting a trophy.
And just to add on to that, because I think like during this stretch where Purdue struggled a little bit, like Purdue fans have just lost a little bit of like reality. We have exactly 4 home games left to watch Braden Smith play basketball. We have 4 home games left to watch Fletcher Lawyer play basketball. 4 home games left to watch Trey Kaufman-Renn play basketball. And maybe, we don't know yet, but maybe only 4 games left to watch Oscar Cluff play basketball. So, like, enjoy it. Enjoy the stretch, the good, the bad. That's what's part of being a fan, man. Just support the team, enjoy it.
Yep, I 100% agree with that. SLK Boiler said just saw the locker room video. Huge positive vibes. TKR leading. I think there was another comment too. Am I gonna find it in time? Yeah, Blake Widmer said just saw a picture from the game. Looks like CJ and TKR both got huge cuts or scratches on their face today. Hey, it was physical, and they were still able to get the win. Kyle Thomas, we're going to close with this comment. He says, "How concerned should we be with our shooting?" And I think we talked through a bit, like in this game specifically, you throw it away a little bit, just given the nature of Nebraska's defense. But I mean, I know they shot really well against Maryland, but it's not been like a great shooting month. I think at some point it does, like water just has to find its level. I think Purdue is a better shooting team than what they've been for the last month. There is concern probably of some tired legs and just things like that creeping in. I guess it's more of just like I expect at some point it to get back to like Purdue being a very good 3-point shooting team, but the confidence little by little is getting a little bit less, if that makes any sense. I don't know if you have any thoughts on this, but if not, we can get out of here.
No, I'm just not going to let you close on a slightly negative note. I'm going to go with this. This is currently, as of right now, the best team we've beaten on the entire season. The only top 15 Ken Palm team as of standings right now that we have won against. It's also a top 10 road win. So I'm just not going to let you close on a slightly negative note, Joe. We won. We're coming out
I got you.
victorious. We figured out a way. We're gonna feel positive about this going into Iowa, where I will be at live this weekend.
Yeah, and that'll be another like that is we will have a preview out for that tomorrow or Thursday probably. That is a trap game that Purdue absolutely cannot overlook. But it's going to be a fun one. And Purdue, through it all, they do get the win. They get their best win of the season. We talked about the implications potentially for seeding, with Illinois losing. Now, 4 teams are just 2 games back of Michigan. Purdue still has Michigan at home. A very good night for Purdue and the Boilermakers. Even if it was touch and go there for a little bit, but at the end of the day, you can't complain about the final score being 80-77 for Purdue, getting the road win, and getting a big win to hopefully kind of get back on track, maybe. But we'll have a preview out. Make sure to like and subscribe, turn on bell notifications. We do appreciate every single person tuning in, hanging out in the chat, and just all of the support that you've given for us this season and this show. So appreciate everybody tuning in, and we will see you all for the preview and then the post game show against Iowa on Saturday.